In this video, I'm creating an epic fantasy war between 4 different factions: the Moon Elves, the Knights of Valor, the Swamp Goblins, and Mountain Dwarves. Long ago, each group was content to let the other live in peace, trading goods and respecting each other's boundaries. However, as the kingdoms expanded, conflicts arose. The Moon Elves, dwelling in forests, considered the woods around them to be dignified and living. However, as the knights expanded their dominion, they cut down trees, trampled ancient groves, and in the eyes of the elves, disrupted nature's balance. In retaliation, the elves declared war on the armies of men. For the Moon Elves, I'm using a dark blue and gray color scheme with gold accents that captures their dignified, mysterious personalities. Some of the minifigures I used to build my elf army include Thor, Doctor Strange, Boromir, King Aragorn, and Fili the Dwarf. The elf army has multiple different classes. The elf sentinels are highly trained warriors equipped with longswords and shields. Tasked with defending the borders of the forest, they have these custom golden shields with tree printing. These deadly shadow archers are able to move among the trees of the forest throughout the night without ever being detected. Captain Aranos works tirelessly alongside this elven philosopher to develop battle strategies to keep the opposing factions from infiltrating the elves' borders, while this blacksmith infuses ancient knowledge into the swords he crafts, giving each one unique abilities, like this one crafted specifically for slaying goblins. Before moving on to the Elven Fortress, let's hear from today's sponsor, Factor. Factor delivers ready-to-eat meals straight to your door, and that is a huge time saver. For the past year, I've been working 2 full-time jobs, so I'm constantly trying to be more efficient. That's why I reached out to Factor. By skipping meal prep, I can spend more time making videos like this. Factor's meals are delicious and are ready in as little as 2 minutes in the microwave. So far, their sun-dried tomato chicken has been my favorite. For someone without much cooking experience, the meals are fancier than anything I could come up with on my own, like their buttered Indian chicken. Their variety of smoothies taste great and have 5 grams of protein with no added sugar. A lot of their meals offer a lot of protein as well as green vegetables, which is perfect for someone like me who loves to lift weights and exercise. You can choose from preferences that include keto, calorie smart, and chef's favorites. Factor's menus are updated weekly, allowing you to experience a variety of different dishes as well as your favorites. Get started with Factor for up to 40% off by clicking the link on the screen or in the description below, and be sure to use my code BRICKPOST50. For the Elven Fortress, I started by picking out a bunch of white column and arch pieces inspired by elven designs in places like Lothlorien and in the LEGO Lord of the Rings sets. To give the outside some texture, I also built in some brickwork and used these pieces with grooves in them on the walls. I added some of these white horn pieces to look like tree branches growing up the sides of the fortress. I then made these large doors leading inside, where you'll find details such as a bookcase where the elves can record their lineage and history, as well as their battle strategies. There's another set of elven armor and a stand for an ancient relic, and these weapon racks. I also made this floor design. I built this ladder leading up to the second floor where the elves can shoot down on enemies from their balcony. I used a ton of circular bricks and hinges to create this round tower to give it a cool elven look. I'm using these spike pieces and horns, and it's topped with these round dish pieces. The elves serve under the rule of King Silverius and Queen Lyra. Throughout the centuries, the elves have formed a bond with the large cats of the forest and use them as their mounts in battle, giving them even more speed and agility than they have on their feet. They've also trained the owls of the woodland realm to carry their messages from one garrison to another. Over the years, LEGO has released a slew of various elf minifigures. Some notable examples include the Elf Warrior from Series 3, who has fantastic printing and is one of my most wanted minifigures. There's also the Elf Maiden from Series 17, along with all of the elves for The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, the most expensive of which is Haldir, who was exclusive to Helm's Deep. One of the rarest elves is this version of Elrond, who was released as an exclusive for pre-orders of the LEGO Lord of the Rings video game and is the only minifigure from the opening of the movies. Our next faction is the Mountain Dwarves. Deep within the earth, the dwarves sought to live in seclusion away from the outside world. They spent their days mining for valuable gems and minerals. They forged weapons and armor of great strength and durability while fortifying their structures. However, as they continued to mine through the earth, they eventually passed under the territory of all of the different factions. As the dwarves unearthed rare and valuable gems and precious metals, the goblins, men, and elves all demanded these as their own and declared the dwarves trespassers. In their stubbornness, the dwarves heartily refused, putting them at odds with everyone around them. I built the Dwarf Fortress out of dark gray slope pieces and a mix of these brick pieces to make it look like a fortress chiseled out of the side of a mountain. I used sharp angles and blocky designs to contrast with the rounder, more elegant features of the Elven Fortress. Inside, you'll find an anvil where the dwarves smith their weapons, as well as this forge where they melt down ores to create ingots of precious metals. Since so many of the dwarves are miners, I hung up some backpacks for them to use as they venture through the tunnels. Finally, I included this throne for King Dorgon's Stonebreaker. It's using these stickered pieces originally from the Lonely Mountain set used for Thorin's throne with the Arkenstone. That set came with some of the best dwarf minifigures LEGO has ever released, and it's the only set to ever come with Smog, the undisputed coolest dragon. Today, Smog is extremely rare and costs over $200, even in used condition. For the dwarves, I'm using a dark red color scheme along with mostly black short legs that came from a variety of minifigures such as Gimli, this Viking, and King Dane. Those beards also make it kind of hard to find helmets that work as well. Some of the combat classes include the heavy infantrymen, who are equipped with axes and hammers, along with the Ironbreakers, who have advanced armor technology and mithril-reinforced gauntlets, strong enough to punch straight through stone. Through their mining experience, the dwarves discovered gunpowder and eventually fashioned flintlock pistols and blunderbusses. Some of the support classes include the cartographers, who map the tunnels, and stonecutters, who can craft statues and other items for the army. Deep within the mountains, the dwarves unearthed ancient eggs that had been perfectly preserved, and by studying the ancient scrolls, the dwarves were eventually able to hatch these eggs, discovering that within were the mighty Triceratops, a colossal beast of unmatched strength and natural armor, making them the perfect companions for the dwarves. On top of the fortress, I made a roof that the dwarves can fight from. It has this room that is full of tools, as well as these cauldrons of molten rock that the dwarves can use to deter enemies from laying siege to their home. As I was building this entire model, I chose to make all of the fortresses the same general shape: 2 walls, a door, a balcony, and a tower, albeit each with their own color scheme and architecture. I did that to make each army appear to be equally matched, like you would expect to find in a game like Clash of Clans or an overhead strategy game like Civilization or Battle for Middle-earth. Our next faction is the race of men, known as the Knights of Valor. The youngest of the 4 races, what the men lack in ancient knowledge, they make up for in ambition and determination. Forging their own destiny, the men have embraced adventure and exploration, venturing into uncharted territories. Like the elves, the swamp goblins view the men's encroachment as a threat to their way of life and a challenge to their dominance. Unlike the other races, I've chosen to split the race of men into 2 subclasses, the forestmen and knights. The forestmen are known for their mastery of archery and affinity for the wilderness. Their color scheme revolves around earthy tones of brown and green, which help them blend into their surroundings. During their time in the wilderness, they have learned how to train the bears. As cubs, the bears are able to learn vocal commands as well as subtle hand gestures, allowing for stealthy hunting and ambushes. The knights are adorned with shining silver breastplates, helmets, and swords, giving them an air of nobility and authority. As they train within the castle barracks, the knights are tirelessly seeking out new military advantages. To build the towers, I used a ton of these angled bricks, along with these spikes that kind of look like small windows when placed within bricks. On the castle gate, I added some torches, and my favorite thing for this entire episode is this portcullis that's able to be raised and lowered with these chain pieces that wind around these wooden beams. It's a deadly deterrent for anyone attempting to walk into the castle unsolicited. Inside, you'll find a decorative green banner for the forestmen, along with this table of food where the men love to eat after a long day of questing. Above the table, you'll find carved into the castle walls the knight's creed, and on the side of the room, you'll find the mounted head of the Minotaur, an ancient beast that killed 200 knights before being killed by the young Prince Aldrich, who henceforth would become King Aldrich Minotaur's Bane. There's also a wooden training dummy and a treasure chest full of gold. Atop the castle, you'll find another balcony and tower. The Knights is equipped with these catapults that are able to be rotated, giving them the ability to target structures and enemies. Atop this tower, Knights can watch the enemies or unleash volleys of arrows. Underneath it, you'll find buckets of water for drinking and putting out fires. Following tradition, each Knight is trained for mounted combat alongside a noble steed. Our final faction for today is the Swamp Goblins, an aggressive and primal group that is known for their savagery in battle. Strength and sheer brute force reign supreme among them. The other factions see the goblins as barbaric and uncivilized. The goblins have been ostracized and encroached upon, but deep within their swamps they are safe, as the treacherous terrain and toxic fumes that are deadly to others only serve to make them stronger. For the Goblin Fortress, I started by using these pieces from the Lord of the Rings Black Gate set, since they have a lot of cool black spike pieces and other elements that I thought would work well. I then gathered a lot of brown pieces and built up what I hoped would look like a stronghold reinforced with spikes, mud, and clay. The Goblin Fortress is the most intimidating and offensive with its skull and bone details. For the door, I fashioned it as a trap. It's a mix of spikes, bones, and sticks woven together that would poison or immediately kill any trespassers. Inside, you'll find other ghoulish details, such as this spider web that the goblins allow to grow. A little extra protein never hurt a goblin. You'll also find a cauldron where the goblin chef prepares meals for his comrades. He has a vial of seasoning. Unfortunately, Mr. Nibbles is back on the menu again. There's weapons and a goblin shield, as well as this table that I built using this grated window piece. It's used for crafting poisons that the goblins use for gas bombs and arrows. On the balcony, you'll find an imposing tower where the goblins store their bags of loot. On the very top there are crossbows, one of which is equipped with a poison dart. The lower balcony is large enough to fit a large group of archers, and there are bombs that the goblins can throw down at enemies. For the goblin minifigures, it was really fun trying to use up all of the olive green minifigure pieces in my collection to make the army, like the Cyclops for this goblin troll hybrid that is using Bosca's head from Star Wars, and this version is using Leonardo's torso and legs from Ninja Turtles. Other minifigures I got to use were Hulk, and this weird one from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. With his huge ears, he lurks around as a scout, gathering intel on the opposing forces. These goblins are the Beastmasters, who train the wargs of the swamp, as well as these ancient reptiles, both of which are extremely deadly. This is a goblin drummer, who sets the pace for the march while striking fear into the enemies. And last of all, we have the Swamp Goblin King, Gornak the Vile, who has the Chieftain's Scepter. He's using Boolio's head. As they lay siege to the other factions, the goblins use these bone ladders. All across the kingdom, the battle rages on with casualties on all sides. Each faction has their strengths and weaknesses, but only one can win, and that's where you come in. Down in the comments, I'll leave a comment for each of the 4 factions. If this video does well, whichever one of those comments gets the most upvotes will win the decisive victory in a future upload. If you have ideas for how the war ends, I'd love to hear your theories, and I may even end up using them to finish this. And until next time, see you later.